Hello and welcome to StampingCatCrew.com. This week is also a color challenge card. We had a color challenge that was from a picture of an embroidery kit, and it was floral, and so the color challenges were lots. And I always tell ladies you don't have to use every single one, but I really want it to look like the original picture, so that when you put them side by side, you can tell that the picture was the inspiration for the color challenge. So on the blog, you would be able to see the original picture compared to the color challenge. There was Night of Navy, Powder Pink, Pear Pizzazz, Old Olive, Real Red, Pool Party, Bermuda Bay. So really an eclectic mix of colors, and actually had a lot of fun trying to figure out what I was going to do with this. And because everything was so colorful, I decided the easiest way to deal with something like this, it was on a navy background and then had the florals. Some of them were some bold colors. So we have a Ronald McDonald charity set. In the back of the catalog, a portion of the proceeds always goes to support the charity. This one is called Sharing Sweet Thoughts. Butterflies are a perfect excuse to use a ton of colors, and of course the Real Red came in with the ladybug. We had leaves for the greens that we were dealing with. So loved it, made it really easy to do. The squares that I did, use the square framelits. There's a 1 3/8 inch square cut out. So that is what I used. And then the sentiment is stamped in Night of Navy, and it says always here for you. I've pre-done some of my cutting for my ribbon and whatnot. So I'm going to put those here. The tiny ribbon red knot that I have is Real Red. It's 1/8 inch, and it's from the holiday catalog. And the item number is 144631. Lots of fun as a trim, or easy to use for all kinds of like gift tags and packaging and whatnot. Also brought in the powder pink in this strip of ribbon. It's the finely woven ribbon, and this one is in the powdered pink, which is really sweet. And just did a strip, cut about 6 inches, and then wrapped it around the blue base. Many of you know that I love to color, and so one of the easy ways to bring in color when you don't want to do the little squishy technique for the ink pad, and I know I've showed you that before, where you just squish and you flip open the lid and you can pick that up with blender pen. Really easy to do, but we have a whole set of markers. And so the color challenge, I pulled out all the markers for what we were using for the color challenge. Those are actually on page 202 in the catalog. There's an entire set. All of the colors that we have, except Whisper White and Very Vanilla, comes in its own carry case. There's extra space in here for the in-color markers, which is really awesome. The item number for this is 131264, and you get all 38 colors. So love it, love it, love it. If you love to color, I find also that it can be used to correct a lot of boo-boos in stamping, and they just come in really handy for a lot of things. So love, love, love the markers. So in case you weren't aware, we have that entire case available. I'm going to set those aside for a minute. So this is our original. I always tell people don't forget to make your envelopes pretty, so we're going to show you that as well. The other thing that I did, and you'll see it at the end, is I added some of the fine tip glue and some glitter in the dazzling diamonds, and that kind of perked up all the little butterflies. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this aside. I'm going to go through the stamping, and then when I color, I'm going to speed up the process so you don't have to sit through that. I've got a little piece of scratch paper here, and I have all of my little squares done. So the leaves I'm actually going to do in Old Olive. I'm going to bring that right down. And the ladybug sits on the leaves, which is really sweet. And remember, you want to go straight down and straight back up with even pressure so you don't end up with that halo effect around your stamp. And I'm going to grab the envelope right now as well. Got it setting aside over here. Since I've got that stamp out and we want to make the envelope pretty, I had it sitting in the corner here And then the ladybug's just going to sit on that. Close up the green. We are done with that. I used Memento ink for the outline stamping that I did. And I tested the ladybug. If you look at it, you can see obviously there is here's the little legs, and then you have this space. When you're doing a rubber stamp, you can't ever tell underneath. And it's not a perfect thing, but what I'll often do is I will stamp it and then I'll line up the edge and I will see exactly where that image falls in relation to a line, and then I know how much space I have. So it doesn't always turn out perfect, but I know I had about the width of the branch here, and I knew the little ladybug was going to be a little bit off the edge. So again, straight down and straight back up, and there he is walking on the little branch. And do the same thing for the envelope, and his little legs will go about the width of the branch, and he's sitting right there. So it ends up being fairly accurate if you take the time just to kind of see the spatial relationship with your stamp. So these are the butterflies, and obviously they're not all going to fit on the panel, and I purposefully did a little off to the side where I knew the sentiment and the bow was going to be. So keep that in mind when you're deciding how you're going to put these things together. So this one is the one that holds most of the butterflies. And I'm going to go straight down and straight back up like that. And then this is the one where most of it is going to be off the edge and you're leaving some space. So we are going to go just about there. And the final stamping that we're going to do is the sentiment. So I'm going to stamp the sentiment, but then I'm also going to do a little bit of fussy cutting with my paper snips. We're going to tag the ends, flag the little ends on there. And so we know we want this centered. And this sentiment says always here for you. So hopefully my head didn't get in the way there. And that is all of the stamping that we're going to do. So I'm going to get the markers out right now, and I'm going to color. I'll fast forward through it so you don't have to watch everything, and then I'll show you assembly at the very end. Okay, so our coloring is done. These are how the pictures are going to lay out. We're going to add a little bit of the dazzling diamonds. I always keep a little paper plate near me. And we have our liquid multi-glue here. And I think because we are on camera, I'm actually going to assemble first, and I'll show you the glitter at the very end. That way I'm not working with it while I'm trying to assemble. And I think that'll be the easiest thing to do. So I've got my layers here. Start with an 11" by 4 1/4 piece of cardstock, scored and folded at 5 1/2. It's a typical A2 size. Got a bone folder. Make my edges nice and crisp. And I've got some Whisper White that I'm going to put on the inside. We have our snail adhesive. I like to run around the edges. I'm going to center that right on the front. And then I'm going to go around the back edges here. And then I take the powder pink that we had. I'm going to wrap the ends right around. And then I always like to go back over and add a little extra adhesive so you don't end up with a spot on each end that's not stuck down, fully attached to your base. So nothing can be sticking up. I'm going to do that. I'm going to take little paper snips, and I know that we are going to tuck this underneath the end a bit, so I'm going to leave a little sticking out, and then I know that, oops, take the very end off, and I always start with a 1/2 inch. I always end up with actually lots of 1/2-inch strips left over, so I use them frequently for sentiments. So I'm going to trim just the edge of that off, and then I'm going to flag the ends. And I often like to start in the center and then go from corner to corner inside each one, and that gives you that nice little flagged end there. So we've got that ready to go. Stampin' Up! This year came out with mini dimensionals, which I love. So I'm going to flip all of these squares over, and I'm going to put one mini dimensional in the corner of each square. And I like to do that, especially if I have a ribbon running through the center of something, because then rather than attaching to the ribbon, it can go to the paper, and the ribbon could run right through the center. And that way you get a better anchor for your focal point. So almost there. And there we are. Set those aside. So these are the ones we know. And I like to start top and bottom and then center the middle one. And you really do have a pretty good idea of how things are going to fall in terms of how much space you're going to have. So if you start with your very first one, and you know you're going to center it just about here, and you've got your butterflies on the bottom. Again, just about here, and then our little ladybug. Oops, hello Teddy. I'm going to grab Ted and move Ted, and we're going to put our ladybug here, and almost set. So we're going to center that in between those two, and that's pretty good. And then that does leave enough room for this, which is wonderful. So I'm going to add a little bit of adhesive to the back of that, and we know we want it right about there. So the final thing we're going to do is take a little Stampin' glue dot, and when I have a little tiny piece of ribbon, I'll either cut a glue dot in half, or I actually roll it to make a really thin little line so that the ribbon can hide behind that glue dot. So that's what I did here. I gave it a little roll, and attach him right there. It's just about perfect. So the final step that I wanted to show you is the dazzling diamonds. And like I said, I always just keep a paper plate handy. And then this is the Tombow liquid glue. Like that. And then take a little bit of our dazzling diamonds. Grab our paper plate. I'm going to sprinkle onto the butterflies where we have the glue. Flip that over, and then I'm going to tap the back. Take off any excess, and then hopefully that shows up pretty good. And the reason I like to do a paper plate is it makes it really easy to just kind of do this. I tap the plate, I open it up, and then I always have it ready to go for the next project. I've seen people use coffee filters too, which is awesome. So that's our finished project. Our little butterflies are sparkly. Hopefully the camera picks that up. And that's it. Thanks so much for stopping by today. I hope you enjoyed the sweet little card. It was fun to do. Happy creating.